All right, then guys, we'll get started. So thank you all for coming today. It's actually a much bigger turnout than I was expecting when I came in and saw how empty the office is today. Yeah, Courtney has organised this event, so I take no credit for this whatsoever. But from the ESG committee's perspective, we thought it would be a really good idea to get the charities in. So I've representatives from the charity here. So we've got Chloe from BigMoose and we've got Aidan from the Gareth Edwards charity. And we just thought it'd be a good idea to, you know, get them in the room, let them show us exactly what it is they do, so that when we're fundraising, and you know, at the minute we're fundraising for the Cardiff Half and we're all on 2 different teams for each charity, so that you know where the money's going, what our fundraising efforts are going towards, and to hopefully just drive some enthusiasm and let everybody know what we're doing it for. So I'll hand over to Eilís first, who's going to give us a little short presentation. There'll be time after for questions and chatting and things. It's really informal, so where should I go? Over to you. I think Courtney's going to be in charge of the
yeah, you can just shout whatever you do.
Sit down. So my name's Ailís and I run the Sir Gareth Edwards Cancer Charity. This is our logo. It's Elusen Cancer Sir Gareth Edwards. So a lot of people have asked me if my name is Elusen, but Elusen is the Welsh word for charity. So we've been open since March this year, so we're a brand new charity. So we are extremely grateful for all your support. Cool. This is good. Okay. The reasons why our charity exists are so Gareth Edwards is 76 years old this year. It's the first time he's ever given his name to a charity. And looking back at his life, he realised that the most important thing that ever happened to him happened between the ages of 15 to 35. I am an oncology social worker, so I've been a social worker for 25 years. And in my last role, I supported young people in their 20s, late teens and 20s who had cancer. So I supported 120 young people. So this has come out of my experience of supporting young people with cancer. So we decided to do a little graph to look at what happened in Gareth's life between the ages of 15 to 35. I don't know if any of you know Gareth, but he's very good at talking. And this graph took us about 4 hours to make every single story about every single odd on this graph. So I won't go through everything, but it just shows, I know that's maybe not a typical life because he had such a good life playing rugby. But this is what happens to us all. We go to school, we buy our first cars, we get our first homes, our first mortgages, we meet our partners. Everything happens, but all the big things happen in that time of your life. And to have cancer during those years is extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult at any age, but at that age, it is really difficult. So our aim simply is to support young people aged 15 to 35 in Wales who are receiving treatment for cancer and are struggling financially. One thing I found when I was working was when you're diagnosed, your wage comes down or disappears. You have to go on statutory sick pay, or you get sick pay from your company. You might be a really good company to support your workers if they go off sick, but not all companies do. There are lots of people, young people who are self-employed, carpenters, they lose all their wage. They have to go on statutory sick pay, which is about £100 a week. If you can imagine being on a wage of maybe a couple of £1,000, and then within a week you're on £400 and you have to pay to get to the hospital, you have to pay for food, you have to pay for your mortgage, everything you have to pay for before. You're going through cancer, you're struggling emotionally, and you're also struggling financially. So this is the gap we wanted to fill. So I was listening to a TED talk this week, and the TED talk said that 80% of life's most defining moments take place by the age of 35. So again, it just shows how important that age bracket is. And looking around this room, a lot of you are in it. Not me, obviously. 15 to 35. If we look at the statistics, of the number of people who are diagnosed with cancer in Wales. So if you look at children, we're looking at about 75 children diagnosed per year with cancer. And then if you're looking at the age range that this charity is targeting, you're looking at knocking on 400 young people. And if you look at the charities out there, there are an awful lot of charities for children, as there should be. But there is, I think, a gap for this age group for 15 to 35-year-olds. And we do think of, you know, people like the Teenage Cancer Unit, who we work really closely with, who are amazing, but they fund the unit in Cardiff and they don't give out any financial support. So we're doing something different to them. And most of our applications come from the Teenage Cancer Unit in Cardiff. So the three things we're hoping to do are provide financial support, like I just said, signpost to other charities. There are amazing charities out there that offer counselling, wigs, you know, the whole caboodle. So we will signpost young people to them, and something we call the yellow deck chair interviews, which I'll explain a bit more about in a minute. So the financial support will help with travel to hospital, accommodation near hospital, household bills, and other things, for example, wigs. Travel to hospital. If you're diagnosed and you're under 25, they ask you to come to the Teenage Cancer Unit in Cardiff. So if you live in Pembrokeshire, you travel 2.5 hours to Cardiff. If you need to get an amputation, you might have to travel to Birmingham. Lots of people in North Wales travel to Manchester for treatment. So the amounts of petrol and you know, wear on your car is massive when you go through cancer. So these are just a few of the applications we've had. So I was talking about the first one earlier. So that's a lad whose income came down from £2,000 to £440, and he couldn't pay for his phone contract. So he contacted us. His nurse also contacted us. Nurse said we just can't get hold of him for chemo. So we paid for his phone contract. They're simple, basic things, but really important things. Another young woman, she was from Swansea, couldn't afford to pay her car insurance, so she had to get the bus in and out from the hospital. And she just had surgery and her breast removed, so she said the pain of getting on a bus, going over the bumps, going round whatever, was awful. So she got a grant from us and literally burst out crying. And she said, I feel ridiculous, she said. And I said, you're not ridiculous at all. It's just something simple that fixes something, that changes something, and that's what we want to do. Okay. Oh, sorry. I thought you changed. And then the signposting, as I said, there are amazing charities out there already, and we don't want to recreate the wheel. Is that what they say? Recreate the wheel? Yeah, there's a saying. We don't want to recreate anything, so we just want to. If you want other things, we'll signpost you to other things. We don't want to redo anything. And then the yellow deck chair interviews. So these, when I was working with young people with cancer, they would always say, oh, you know, I've just been diagnosed. I don't want to hear about somebody else who's struggling and, you know, at the end of life, and those pictures of people with tubes coming out to them. I want to see somebody who's been through the same cancer as me, but who's now doing well. See somebody who's maybe had fertility issues, but who's now got children. I want to know what the positive is at the end of all of this. So that's why we decided to do yellow deck chair interviews. So these are interviews with young people, all in their 20s and early 30s, who've been through cancer and are now doing well. So they're positive interviews, and these are on our website. So this is our website address. I'll give you a link after so you can all repeat. Another thing people don't understand sometimes is how long cancer can be with you for. And we have a trustee in the charity who was diagnosed with cancer at 13. She's now 28, and she's relapsed 3 times. It comes, it goes, things affect her. She's going through early menopause. You know, she doesn't have hair, so she has to wear a wig all the time. So very often it's not something that comes and goes within 6 months. It can be with you for a lifetime. So it's important to to think about that when we think about cancer diagnosis. So things that affect young people in particular are things like fertility. So if you're diagnosed with cancer and you have to have chemo, they will ask you to either harvest your egg or give a sperm donation because of the chance that the chemo will stop you having children. So this is something, again, that affects younger people more than it affects older people. So you can I literally watched young people come into the hospital, and within one day, so you're walking around normally, and then the following day you're told, oh, right, you've got cancer, and by the way, you may never be able to have children. Can you even start to imagine hearing both those massive bits of news in one day? It's just astounding. So yeah, fertility, chemotherapy is absolutely horrible. We'll fly through these. The sickness is horrible. The hair loss is massive for boys and girls. Lots of girls said that they worried about losing their hair more than the cancer diagnosis. Constipation can be really difficult. Tiredness. One young person described having the tiredness post chemotherapy was as if a double-decker bus had come and parked on top of them. So it's not like a normal tiredness. It's like beyond tired. Radiotherapy, if you have radiotherapy on your head, then it's quite likely that your hair will never grow back. And you may be doing all of this with two toddlers in the house. And I don't know if anybody has got toddlers, but it's hard enough to have a normal day when you've got a toddler in the house, let alone all this on top of it. And then the feeling of being left behind. So maybe all your friends are going off to university, they're getting jobs in law firms, and you are just, the ill person who has to take maybe 3 years out of their lives to recover from chemo. And then when you go back into life, it's a different kind of life. People have moved on, people have maybe met partners and you haven't. It's all of that as well. And then living with a difference. If you lose a limb, if you lose a leg, an arm or whatever, you have to cope with living with a difference. I supported a young girl, she's 19, from not too far from here, and she had terminal brain tumour, and she was just the most incredible artist. But the brain tumour made her body, she was paralysed basically, but it crept up her body, and towards the end of her life, she could only use her hands. And I asked her whether she would draw for me what it felt like to be in her shoes, basically being 19 and knowing that she was at the end of her life, and that is the picture she drew for me. It's amazing, I think. Yeah, and she passed away about 6 months ago. The types of cancer differ as well significantly by age. So children tend to get leukemia, the blood cancers, then young people, testicular, melanoma. Melanoma is quite surprising, isn't it? Skin cancer, just blinking rain in all the time. Never think that. Breast cancer, Hodgkin's lymphoma and cervical. And then obviously for the older people, it tends to be prostate or lung. So basically, if you're diagnosed in your early 20s, you have a far greater understanding of what you may never have. So you know that maybe you won't get married, you may never have children, you may never get your first job, you may never go traveling, which I think personally makes it, an extremely cruel time to be diagnosed with something like cancer. Whereas when you're old, it's not a good time, but you look back and you think, well, I had my gorgeous children, I remember my marriage, all of that is very different. So why now? Why start a charity now at such a daft time when nobody has any money? But I think that's the point of it. So because of COVID, there's been a delay in diagnosis or a delay in people going to the doctors. So people present with worse cancers. So the cancers are maybe stage 3, stage 4 because they've left it a bit. Because of financial cuts, lots of the big charities have stopped giving, for example, relapse support, or brought the grants they give down a little bit. So, and they do this quietly, but that's a big effect on people as well. And then the cost of living with cancer. So there was research recently that showed that if you have cancer, it puts an extra £900 on your monthly bills when your wage is coming down and your mortgage is going up and your bills are going up. So it doesn't add up very well. So this is us. So we're registered with the Charities Commission. All our banking is done with Coots. We do our banking with Coots not because we've got loads of money, because they said they do all our banking for free. And I am from West Wales, Ceredigion, and we are very tight in Ceredigion. Thank you, Coots. Our website was created by 4 Communications, again completely for free. And they said after we created it, you can pay some monthly fee. That was 6 months ago. They haven't mentioned it, and I haven't mentioned it. Good. And social media and marketing is all done by me, and I don't pay myself anything. So yeah, it's a very West Walian charity. So this is the story so far, simply. So we opened on March the 1st. And since then, we've given 110 young people grants of £250. So that means we've given out £27,500 directly to young people. So that's in the first kind of 5 months, which we're really proud of. And they're from everywhere. They're from Ynys Môn, they're from Gwynedd, they're from Pembrokeshire, they're from Ceredigion, they're from the south, they're from literally everywhere. And this is one of my favourite quotes: decisions are best made by the people who are affected by them. So we have 1 young person on our board of trustees, the young person I was telling you about earlier, and we have 10 young people with a cancer experience on our board. So our board is 10 young people in their 20s who have all been through cancer. There are no people over 20 on our board. And this is them. And I counted this morning, and there's 9 there. We have got 10, but I've missed Janet out, so sorry, Janet. And these are our ambassadors. And in order to be an ambassador for the Sir Gareth Edwards Cancer Charity, you have to put your hands on your head. That's why these 2 people have managed to become on board. So we've got 4, but these are our stars from the weekend. So Elvin Evans won the Finland World Rally Championship for Toyota over the weekend, and Jack Morgan was brilliant in the rugby over the weekend. So yes. The future, what does the future hold? We've got lots of ideas for the future, lots of fun things. Music is something, and art, I think, is something really important to young people. So that's something we're going to look at. But what we wanted to do to start off with was to do the basics properly. So we're going to just do the basics for the first year, and then if we're feeling a bit cocky, we might move on and do something more. But just doing the basics for now. And I love this picture because I wanted to finish the presentation by saying we're a forward-thinking, young, Instagrammable, dynamic charity. And here's a picture of Gareth Edwards sharpening a pencil with a knife in the The quote was on the day, this is on when the trustees were meeting, he said, "We're not going to get anywhere without sharp pencils." And yeah, that's just a picture of some of the trustees. Mrs. Alice, the young woman I was talking about, she told us that the cost of her wig has gone up from £800 to £1,450, and she gets £90 from the NHS towards her wig. And she said that's the most important thing to her, because when she puts it on, she feels as if she can go out into the world. Because it's a real hair one, so they're better. Girls, you'll understand, you know, the synthetic ones look like something of a horse's tail, but the real ones are much better. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Does anyone have any, we'll have a chance to chat and be a bit more social at the end, but does anyone have any questions or immediate things they want to bring up now before we move on? No? No, Chloe? Do you want to go? Yeah.
That was amazing, by the way.
Oh,
yes. You don't have it speaking before?
No.
I got some next in. You, sorry. I'm a bit chaotic with my slides, so sorry. So I started actually. Nice to meet you all. Thank you so much for having us in. Me in. It's lovely to be here. I'm really excited to work with you guys more. So I've got a little bit of a different route. I thought I'd give you a little bit of my story and kind of why BigMoose came to be, because it is a very family-based charity, and that's a big part of the story. And hopefully that will get you guys to understand why we do what we do. Okay. Amazing. So in 2010, as I stood on top of Mount Kilimanjaro, aged 15, becoming the youngest Welsh woman to ever do so, I had no idea quite how much this experience was going to influence my life forever and everything that was to come. I was very lucky. I grew up in a two-parent household with my sister. We had a wonderful childhood, and we were brought up to kind of believe that we could do anything. And we had those sort of parents that if we wanted to try and achieve, they believed in us, they pushed us, they told us to never ever give up. I love this picture on the right because it really does sum up what a sassy little thing I was. So this is me about 3 or 4 years old, having dressed myself and thinking I was the coolest kid in town. But the reason for showing this photo is I think your childhood shapes a lot of who you are. And at this point in my life, I was in nursery, and we recently were cleaning out a loft and we found my nursery report. And it said on it, bossy, likes to be in charge, rushing her work and to talk to others. And the reality was, maybe I came across as bossy, but I like to think of it as maybe early leadership skills. But I think the language has changed these days, and I don't think the teachers would put bossy anymore. And also the sort of rushing your work to talk to others was not actually the case, because in my class was a little lad who I remember vividly. And it's only since growing up that I've come to know that he actually had cerebral palsy. But all I remember was he was a little bit slower. And the reason I was rushing my work was so that I could help him. And I think sometimes with children, we assume and we don't always get the full picture. So this man is extremely important to the story. This is my dad. We've always been extremely close. He is the kind of man that if he has an idea, he will go for it no matter what. And he is obviously the co-founder of BigMoose. So why Kilimanjaro? So when I was 15, like I said, grew up really, really close family. And when I was 15, my sister was 18. She'd just finished her A-levels. So she'd done maths A-level. I don't know if anyone did maths A-level here. No. No way. You did. Okay, you know how tough it is, right? And she is one of those people that found everything easy in school. So she got 100% at maths A-level, but was one of those people that didn't really need to work for it. She was just naturally really smart. And her teachers were like, you can go to Oxford, you can go to Cambridge, you can do anything you want. Please go to these unis. She didn't want to. She wanted to be an actress. So she came home, spoke to my parents. They encouraged her to live her dream. And that is actually my sister as Cruella de Vil in Disneyland Paris. So when she was 18, that was how she went. But at 15, I was left at home with my parents, and there was a massive gap in the family when she'd left. And my parents were like, why don't you do something? Come up with an idea, do something a bit different. So it kind of started with maybe like joining a choir or like a netball club or something. And the ideas kind of grew and grew and grew until I decided I wanted to climb a mountain. I still have no idea where the idea came from. But I spoke to my parents and they were like, what do you guys think? Unbeknownst to me, my mum behind my back was like, absolutely not, no chance at all. Whereas dad was like, come on, we can do this. So because I was 15, I had to take a guardian with me. So dad came along. We trained hard. They've always taught us to be as prepared as we possibly can be. Next slide, thank you. This is probably a couple of hours from the summit, and I actually thought I was going to die at this point. It was one of the toughest experiences, and being so young at the time, I don't think you really fully understand your body, probably as well as you do as you get older. I was in some random lady's snowboarding jacket. Our water had frozen. We were messes basically. Dad told me on the first night. The next morning, he told me that was actually his first time ever sleeping in a tent. So we were like proper, we knew what we were doing. But it was just a really interesting journey where we aimed to raise some money for charity. We raised about 15 grand, and we had just the best time ever. We did get better at climbing. Dad actually continued and ended up summiting Mount Everest 7 years later. So it did get better. I, however, came back and had to go back to school and do my exams. I did my GCSEs, my A levels, and kind of got to that stage, you know, when you get to your A levels and you're like, now what? I was being pushed by my school to go to uni and to become a teacher, because linking back to when I was little and really wanting to help the other students, that kind of stayed with me, that helping people, fundraising, charity work, and teaching just seemed like the normal route to go. So I started uni, kind of loved it and hated it. I loved working with the children, but I absolutely hated the red tape, the being told what you can and can't do, not good at that. And I just didn't feel like I was having enough of an impact. So I was also diagnosed, has anyone ever heard of fibromyalgia condition? Pretty grim. I was diagnosed with that, so I was 18, 19 at the time. So for anyone who doesn't know, pain, joint, muscles, anything you can think of, everything hurts. Next slide, thank you. So if you imagine waking up in the morning, you know, like when you go to the gym, you get really sort of like aches and pains, that sort of feeling, times it by 10, and that was just your everyday. And I went to the doctors, and the doctor gave me a prescription, and she said, you're going to have to take these. And I was like, how long? And she was like, kind of forever. She said it was a pain medication. So I went home and had a little research. It was actually an antidepressant, but I wasn't depressed. I was just in pain. So it was just a really confusing time as a 15-year-old. And I did a load of research and found that actually running was a really good thing for fibro. It really helped. Still don't really understand why. But again, horrendous pain, put your shoes on, going out for a run. They don't tend to go together. But I pushed myself. I got out the front door. I remember just like probably going about 100 meters, to be honest. My parents were like tapping me back in, bless them. And I had to make some big decisions at this point. And I love to talk about the power of walking away, because I think in life, and especially as Brits, we're really bad at walking away from things and going, actually, this isn't right. So at the time, I was hating uni, didn't want to be a teacher anymore, but was thinking, oh, I'll do my last year just to get the degree. And I remember Dad saying to me, he's like, why are you doing this? And I was like, I mean, part of me just wants the picture in the cap and gown, and part of me does want to have a uni degree. And he was like, why? And it was just a really good question. I was like, do you know what, actually, I don't want to spend another year doing something I hate. So I left. And it was the best decision I ever made. And at the same time, I started to try and heal my body through running and food, nutrition. And I went on to do a 10K, a half marathon, pushed myself and managed to get an ultra marathon done. I won't bore you with all the details, but I kind of healed my body through lots of different ways that wasn't that prescription. I never cashed that prescription. It was one of the best things I ever did, not just taking the advice of someone that you kind of think of doctors, they know everything, but actually on that day, they were wrong. I healed myself, left uni, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. All I kind of knew at this point was that I really liked helping people. So it was Christmas time, and we went down to the back of Marks and Spencer in town. I don't know if anyone's ever seen it before, but there's a soup kitchen there. 8 p.m, 365. So we started going down, I think every sort of 2 weeks or so, we were giving out sandwiches, hot drinks, and just kind of getting to know the homeless community of Cardiff, who were a beautiful bunch of people. They were so lovely, and we learned so much from them. And what we were hearing more and more was that someone needed to just give them a chance. A lot of them were struggling with their mental health. And there was a lot of stories. It wasn't just people who were drunk or on drugs. It was people like you and me. We're all a couple of paychecks away from being homeless. We're all a couple of paychecks away from our whole world's changing. Probably your patients, a couple of paychecks away. You suddenly lose that income, what happens? So we spent a lot of time saying someone needs to do something. And then we lost my dad's best mate. So this was Gary Clunan. Weirdly, there seems to be a lot of links. We lost Moose to cancer in 2007, and he was only 42 when he died. And it made us aware of mortality in a way that it hadn't before. We'd lost people, we'd lost grandparents, we'd lost people in their 80s, 70s, and it kind of somehow feels a little bit more understanding. At 42, when you've got young kids, it just seems so cruel. And it showed us how fragile life can be. So we decided to set something up in Gary's name, and his nickname was Moose. He was 6'7". He was a big defenseman in ice hockey, and my dad was the goalie. So they used to play for the Cardiff Devils. And so we did it in Moose's name. It was us going down to the homeless community. We had restaurants helping us make some amazing food, and Cotswold Outdoors donating warm clothes and bedding. But it just felt like we were putting a plaster on the problem. We weren't really getting to the root of the cause. we were just going out and trying to just fix it, kind of like that prescription. It wasn't getting to the root of what was really wrong. It was just trying to fix the symptom. Thank you. So this is where things start to make a bit more sense for me about finding your purpose. And I truly think your purpose rests in that crossing between what you love and what other people need. And it kind of, the dots were starting to connect from when I was that 3-year-old little thing running around in double denim, helping my mate in nursery, through to teaching, and finally starting to find what I wanted to do as a career. So we came up with an idea for a coffee shop. So I don't know if anyone's ever been to the coffee shop. We're in town, just off Queen Street. And the idea was that we wanted to serve the world in more ways than one. So we wanted to make great coffee and food, but we also wanted to give back to try and support the homeless people of Cardiff and try and support people with their mental health and try and just make a difference through, I suppose, through coffee. We took on a building, which I think next slide again. I remember walking in and being like, this is it, this is the one. And we'd seen probably like 50 different units and we saw this. I still don't know why we fell in love with it, because as you can see, it was absolutely awful. I think the estate agent thought we'd lost the plot, but we took it on. And it really is about trusting the journey. We had lots of friends and family help us to get the building to look amazing. There's a long story about Kickstarter in there, which I won't bore you with now. But we've been open for about 5 years and we've helped lots of people through the shop, whether that be our team or our guests. Thank you. We're #1 coffee shop in TripAdvisor, which still makes me laugh because I still don't know how to make coffee, and neither is sad. But we have an amazing team who do. I did this presentation a couple of nights ago in front of some of our team for the first time, and I was like, but the funny thing is, we're not actually the best at coffee. And our team were like, what does she mean? And I truly stand by that. We are not the best at coffee. There are other coffee shops in town that are far better, far more superior with their specialty coffee than us. But the bit that we are 100% the best at, and that I would fight any coffee shop or restaurant on, is our people. We train them well, we look after them, and they in turn look after our guests. They truly are amazing. If anyone's been to the shop, I hope you've had that experience, because they are really wonderful people. The coffee shop was great. We were training people who'd experienced homelessness. We were taking people in who needed a bit of extra support, who needed mental health support, who maybe had been out of work for a while, needed some references. We work with children who go to schools for bad behaviour. We've worked with people with autism. We've really just helped kind of whoever needs it within the coffee shop. But we were seeing more and more people struggling with their mental health. Out of interest, listen to the question before you put your hand up. In this room, hands up, who knows someone, or if it's not yourself, your family, your friends, anyone who has ever struggled with their mental health. I have done this talk hundreds of times all around the world to thousands of different people. I have never been in a room where not 100% of people have put their hand up, which I think really shows you how much this work is needed. So during lockdown, we started giving a little bit of therapy to people. Really, really small basis, just friends, family, people in the shop, people we knew. And we had 5 people tell us that it saved their life. Just some really basic therapy, that's it. And that had been enough to turn their life around. So we decided to register as a charity, which you know is a really complicated and tough process, right? Yeah. Yeah, so we're officially registered. And those numbers, I don't know about you, but those numbers mean a lot to us. It allows us to help more people. Those numbers give us the freedom to come and speak to people like you, to become Charity of the Year, to get the message out there further. We've had some amazing support over the years. Cardiff Hearth is a big one for us. We've got 155 runners, I think, this year. So it's our biggest team ever. And it truly was just Dad and I for a long, long time. And then you guys haven't met my dad, but when I do this presentation and people who have met my dad are in the room, that always gets a laugh because they know what he is like. And when he gets an idea and it's in his head, it will happen one way or another. So we've kind of got a joke about it now that if he sends me that text, everything is going to change and my to-do list is going to get a lot longer. So October 2021, I got exactly that message. And he said to me, the therapy we're providing is helping people. It's already saved 5 lives. So there's 5 families that are out there right now that are not grieving and not in loss because of some basic therapy. We need to do more of it. So we needed more therapists, so that was easy. We have an amazing pool of therapists that we work with, but we just needed money. Therapy is expensive, and on average it's about £100 per session. So rather than just saying we were going to try and raise 10 grand or 20 grand or whatever, we needed to go really, really big. That was the only way we were going to get people's attention. So Dad decided, what about raising £1 million? But we would try and do it in the shortest time frame possible. So just to give you an idea, January 2022, it was just Dad and I. We were also running the coffee shop, and Dad also has his own business, so there was a lot going on and not a lot of people. Thank you. So how were 2 people with no team, no offices, not really a lot, going to raise £1 million? Yes.
For the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, troublemakers, the right case, square homes. Once seen things different. They're not common. No respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. The only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change. They push the humans forward. And some may see them as the crazy ones. We see teens. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world. Once they do.
So the people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. And we absolutely think we are crazy enough to change. As you know what we are, we already are, because there's already 5 families I told you about earlier. I'll give you the numbers of the people that we've helped since. Project 1 Million launched January 1st, 2022. We had people swimming in the sea to raise money. We had these guys, who I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Kinging It, but they are a YouTube channel with 250,000 subscribers. They went from North to South Wales in a wheelie bin and raised £60,000. The guy on the top left with the Be Kind t-shirt on, he was on the path to suicide. Thankfully, we intervened, we saved his life. And last year, he ran 84 kilometres every week for a year to represent the 84 men that we lose every year in the UK to suicide. And the last kilometre he did in Battersea Park in London with all of us, there was hundreds of people running, and that was to represent him and the fact that he was still here. We've had people climb mountains, we've had people abseil off buildings. We've won awards and we put on talks. It's really not about the awards. It's really not about Dad and I. We're the ones that stand up here and tell you this story, but ultimately it's about the people that we're helping. And on the 2nd of May 2023, that it became a very important day. Within 486 days, we raised that £1 million. 2 of us, we brought 2 more people on this, 4 of us on the team. Most recently, we've hired someone else. So there's 5 of us now, but throughout that whole Project 1 Million phase, there was 3 of us. That was it. And we did it because we believed we were crazy enough to do it, because we had the most amazing people like you guys supporting us, believing in the dream as well. So the key numbers, 621 people have come through our system since January 1st, 621 people have had therapy with us. 306 of those have graduated from their therapy. So we don't just say they finished therapy or they completed it, it's a graduation, because graduating from anything is a huge success. I know you just graduated from uni, I'm sure you're extremely proud of that. And we want people who finish their therapy with us to feel that success as well. But more importantly, that number 5 is actually now 25. 25 people have told us in words that the therapy has saved their life. And this is what you guys are helping us to do. We all know someone, whether it's ourselves or someone in our family, friendship group, or work colleagues, who have suffered with their mental health. I'm sure we probably all got someone in our heads right now that maybe could benefit from the therapy that we give. And there's 25 families out there not grieving, not going into another Christmas season or summer holiday without that person in their lives. So the dots finally connect for me, from sassy 3-year-old through to Killy, running, coffee shop, and the charity, and ultimately finding what my purpose is in life, which is to leave the world better than we found it. So I'll leave you with this quote: only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far they can go. Since completing Project 1 Million on the 2nd of May, we've now launched July 15th, project 15. I'm sure you can all guess. We are aiming to raise 15 million. We haven't put a time frame on it. It will happen within the next few years, I'm sure. That's okay. Ultimately, we'll save more lives. So any pennies that you guys raise, anything at all will go into that project 15 pot, and together you will be a massive part of achieving that goal. So I'm going to leave that email address up there. If anyone wants to take a note of it, feel free to pass it out to anyone you know. If it's for yourself or someone you know, please just get them to email us. They will get a response probably within like 2 hours, but within 24. They'll have a therapist assigned to them within that same 24 hours, and they'll have a therapy session within a week. There is no waiting list for us. There is no hoops to jump through or massive forms to fill out. We make the process as easy and as simple as possible. So I have that in a very short nutshell. Sorry for talking so quick. I was conscious of the time, but thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, happy to talk.
Thank you so much. That was so good.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions, or otherwise, hopefully you can stick around for like 5 minutes and we'll have a more informal chat if anyone wants to, if they don't want to say anything out loud. Anybody got any pressing questions they want to know? Okay,
I was wondering about your counselling, is it like over the phone or do people go?
It's either online, so like on Zoom, or in person. So we've got offices in town, and we've also got therapists based in London. So that's face to face, but also online. We want to make it as accessible as possible, so people don't want to leave. Perhaps some people actually really enjoy being online. Other people need to get out of their space and come to ours, and that's absolutely fine. So both.
Counselling for anything then, anything mental health. People.
Fab. Well, we'll stick around 5 minutes, have yourselves some food if you've got any questions from me or Courtney or any of the guys. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. And hopefully we'll support the charities even more now that you guys all.
Yeah, thank you so much for supporting us, guys. It means a lot.
Thank you. Thanks.
Excellent.
Much pleasure.
Thank you.